North Korea, the Korea that we are least fond of. I'm endlessly fascinated with it, to be honest. North Korea is one of the more interesting things on the planet just because it is so weird and different from everywhere else in the world. They have fired a ballistic missile. They've done a ballistic missile test into the Sea of Japan. I have basically stopped reporting on North Korean missile tests. It happens basically annually, which is great. Now, for them, I don't know what I just said. I think I say which is great a lot. And this is completely inappropriate. It's not great. It's terrible. Just totally listened to myself and lost my train of thought, which was a huge mistake. So, why did they do this? Most of the time, they call it saber rattling, but I actually was like, man, for North Korea, for a country with not a ton of resources, maybe just shooting stuff into the water isn't the best idea for you guys. But they're not taking advice from me. I wonder if anyone in Japan... See, I've already done it. My words are all gone. It's allergies are kicking my ass. I wonder if anyone in North Korea has listened to Ninja News Japan. Because it wouldn't show up in my stats. There's no way. Like, I'll get one from Egypt or one from... I had a friend go visit her family in Nepal. And then she said, I'm going to purposely download one episode of every one of your podcasts so that you get one from Nepal, which I was really happy about. Anyways, I'm pretty sure no one in North Korea is listening. So I feel pretty confident saying whatever I want and not getting in trouble for it. So why did they do this? They're not really testing stuff. They're trying to make sure everyone still pays attention to them. This is like one of those kids in high school who doesn't get enough attention. And when people talk about international politics, they do talk about high school a lot, which is disturbing if you think about it. Japan, South Korea, and the US met in Washington the same day they shot it. And they were basically sitting down to talk about North Korea's situation. And this is what they do, how they respond. They respond by shooting a missile into the water. They've been ramping up cruise missile tests and some really science fiction sounding train-launched hypersonic gliding vehicles. Now, I have a negative image of North Korea and their technology. I watched a documentary, and in the documentary, they were talking about their computer capabilities. In the back, there was a dude, old Korean dude, sitting on a computer, and he was moving the mouse. He wasn't touching the keyboard at all. The monitor was off. So he was there for activity to make it look like something was happening, but no one had told him, you got to turn the screen on. I assume the computer wasn't on either, but that's actually less relevant. If you had the screen on, at least something would be flickering in the background. He was just moving the mouse with nothing on the screen. Unless this is super advanced North Korean technology and their computer screens can't be picked up by cameras like vampires. North Korean technology follows the same rules as vampires. Can vampires be filmed? I now have the episode for this afternoon's Velocipodcast where I talk about whether or not... Because vampires aren't reflective. They can't be seen in mirrors. But then we've moved on to digital technology, so our cameras don't have mirrors in them anymore. I'm going to pause for a second to write that down because that might be this afternoon's Velocipodcast. Okay, so the hypersonic gliding vehicle. I was trying to figure out what that is. And so basically they have a train and they're going to launch it off this train. So it's every weapon on a train in fiction that I've ever read about, or for me it's video games, has been a rail gun. So weirdly, because they call it a vehicle, it's not like a rail gun. It's not like, it's a launching platform. So I'm wondering, does the plane go super fast and shoot the hypersonic gliding vehicle off it? I don't know. It's a secret project, and I'm assuming it doesn't work. Again, my opinion of North Korean technology is pretty low. I'm really hoping there's no people in it. There's a really old book called My Tank Is Fight. And it was from the old Something Awful website forums. There was a guy who knew a lot about World War II, and he wrote a book. And it was all the weirdest things invented in World War II. And it's super interesting. And it had a German human-guided missile. So basically, they shoot a missile. There's a person in there who flies it. and then it crashes. There was no plan to get them out. And this was actually developed essentially before kamikaze was a thing that we knew about. Okay, but we're back at. So they had a meeting, South Korea, Japan, and the U.S., and they're going to talk about North Korea. And so North Korea is like, we're going to shoot a missile, and you can pay attention to us. They were actually kind of already paying attention to them. But that causes a lot of stress. So then, that's not enough. This is actually a very stressful week if you actually think about, a war breaking out. China and Russia combined sent 10 warships through the Tsugaru Strait in northern Japan, because the United States, Britain, and Australia have finalized some kind of submarine deal, which I have not actually read about. It is a big piece of news internationally, but because it didn't focus on Japan, I didn't actually read it. They're going to make nuclear submarines or something. Russia and China are unhappy, so they're like, oh, we're going to put our boats real close to one of your friends. This is international politics. This is literally the level of international politics. Like, not doing that actually would have the same effect. Like, everyone gets stressed out, but then you don't do anything. So how do they get their boats so close? This was the interesting bit, because it's nautical law, and I love a good piece of nautical law. Outside of 3 nautical miles is considered international waters when you're talking about the Tsugaru Strait. Because what they wanted to do was allow American nuclear submarines. So Japan has this rule, no nuclear weapons allowed in their space. So in Japan, there's no nuclear weapons in Japanese waters. And I think it's usually 7 or 12 nautical miles away from your coast is still your area. They reduced it to 3 in this area so that American nuclear submarines could go by. And this is the technically I'm not touching you policy. So Russia and China know that. So they're like, we're in international waters real close. We're not touching you. Does this bother you? We're not touching you. So I guess it's okay. Can't do anything about it. It's ridiculous. And honestly, the more I read about international politics, the more childish it actually seems. And it's weird to think there's adults running these things. Like smart adults, I assume. I've never met them. I don't know. They might be morons. A lot of people I met who are supposed to be smart are really, really dumb. They're smart in one capacity. I forget. There was one guy in psychology, and he defined 7 sort of types of intelligence. There's another guy I think did 12. I guess the more categories you have, the more. But that's, again, it's subtle. You can be smart one way and dumb another way. So there's a guy who's smart with computers, low emotional intelligence. There's a guy who is smart with math, but makes poor life decisions, stuff like that. I think these guys probably are smart in one way and dumb in all the others, just how they got their positions. So then we get to the scary part for me. I live in Japan. Japan is now, the government is considering strike capabilities. Now, what they're saying, because again, Japan can't have an army that can go to other countries and invade and attack and stuff, but they have to be able to defend themselves. So what they're talking about is, hey, what if we start making missiles that can hit North Korea, that can hit China, that can hit Russia? And look, I think we all know what this really means is down the road, what this means is Gundam. And I don't want anyone to give Japan an excuse to actually make. These people have been desperate to make a Gundam. Look at all the anime, all the cartoons and stuff. These people grow up dreaming of giant robots piloted by basically teenagers and stuff, and that can do amazingly destructive things. And they want to put it in the hands of kids. It's always teenagers, and they want to put it in the hands of kids. And these guys are going to be like, well, North Korea's... And again, if you think about what I've just been saying about international politics, it fits. You get a bunch of teenagers in there who fly their Gundams around and then hit you emotionally. I mean, it's just devastating. Just to be like, oh, North Korea, you don't have any rights. For people who are listening to the podcast and not watching on Twitch or YouTube, I moved my head when I said that. Back and forth, like I was sassy. Oh, I try to work sassy into the title of the podcast. I'm going to forget by the end. But Gundam is all they think about as a culture. And I think really what everything they're doing is building towards is creating a real Gundam. They have those fake Gundams Japan is a very technologically advanced country. It's weird because there's the dichotomy of how low technology has still got a foothold in Japan, but there are a lot of innovations that come from Japan. I don't want Japan to have an excuse to make a Gundam. So please, North Korea, Russia, and China, just behave like adults and back off. Or you're going to get Gundammed. And it's not going to work out well for either party. It's not going to work out well for Japan either. That's actually the bit. Because if you also look at their anime, it's all very emotional. Molnupiravir. Molnupiravir is not the name of Thor's hammer. It is an oral drug designed to combat COVID. It's a U.S. company called Merck, M-E-R-C-K, Merck, developed the drug, and they're trying to fast track it, and Japan really wants it. If the FDA approves it, they're going to just allow it. This is the world's first antiviral pill, and it actually was a flu drug that attacks RNA. I have only the vaguest understanding of what I just said. But basically, they're making a pill to combat flu-like symptoms. But it's not just like, take aspirin and your fever goes down because of the magic of drugs. This one is going to do something similar, but it's going to do it a different way. That's the core. A layman like myself, and I assume most of the people who actually listen to News Japan are laymen. That's all you really need to know. It was actually the results of the study. So I'm not actually talking about that because A, I cannot pronounce the name of the drug, and B, I don't know how it works. I only vaguely understand what RNA is. A lot of people can't admit what they don't know. One of the reasons I generally sound smart is because when I don't know stuff, I'm just like, dude, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea what anyone's talking about. But it means if I say something stupid, because I've already admitted I don't know what I'm talking about, I've kind of like pre-laid that path out. So you're like, oh, he was stupid, but he knows he's stupid, which is the first step. Also, sometimes I pretend to not know stuff just to get other people to talk more so I can learn more about their opinions and how they act as people. And I was interested in the study. So what they were worried about, of course, when they do studies is the side effects. 1.3% of the people had strong enough side effects they had to stop taking the drug. But this was compared to 3.4% of people in the placebo group had such strong side effects that they had to stop taking the drug. So really, 3 times more people in the placebo group had strong side effects. I'm thinking, maybe I just need more placebos in my life. I need someone to sell. And I learned a thing a long time ago. If a placebo is more expensive, it is technically more effective psychologically. So if I give you here's some sugar pills and I charge you $1 for 50, you're going to be like, oh, these don't work very well. If I charge you $50 for 50 sugar pills, you'll be like, oh, these work really well. Maybe that's the answer, is the power of the human mind, that we can just start just using placebos. And you can get them out. They'll be approved really fast. And then the anti-vaxxers would look really stupid. Here's a drug you can take. I guess they're already taking ivermectin. Weirdly, a word I can say. So, it's not going to be hard to convince them to take something else. Are they against needles? I have a weird relationship with the idea of an anti-vaxxer. I think this is a group of people who are rebellious but lazy. So they want to rebel against something, but they don't actually want to do any work. So not taking the vaccine or being forced to take the vaccine, by not doing it, they are rebelling, and they can get really indignant and stuff. I don't know. It's a weird, again, sort of dichotomy of what's going on. I think I've used the word dichotomy 5 times today. Suntory has made a vending machine that no company is ever going to want. They've made a vending machine, and if you have 2 employees who scan their ID card at the same time, within 10 seconds of each other, because I guess you can't do this one scanner at the same time, you'll get 2 free drinks. And this is supposed to promote communication within companies because they've kind of lost that. Companies, because they've had to send people home and the work from home and coronavirus and stuff. They're like, we got to get people working together and talking again. But they're going to just gossip. I mean, that's what people do. When you're working, you talk about work. When you are standing around having a drink, you're not, I can't make blanket statements like that. If I'm having a drink, I'm not generally talking about work. If I'm having a coffee, I don't drink coffee, but let's say I'm having a tea with a coworker. If we're doing that, I'm trying to not think about work. So I'm just gossiping or telling stupid stories or something. We're talking about like movies we've seen. So the idea is to promote communication. I don't think this is going to work. I think this is already a failed experiment. The employers have to pay for the free drinks, and they can choose the time and how many free drinks are available. So I'm betting, I guess if the company went ahead and got this machine, they would have to put in at least one just to save face. But I don't know. I don't see, certainly the companies I've worked for have never provided free drinks. I can't see them starting to provide 2 free drinks so that I can spend my time standing around talking to one of my coworkers. A weird crime. I've always enjoyed weird crimes, but it's weird crimes. 60,000 persimmons were stolen from an orchard in Gifu. They were taken from 400 trees, and the approximate value of 60,000 persimmons is 3 million yen. That's a lot of persimmons, 60,000. I can't conceivably imagine how many that is, like how big a truck you would need. Like if I filled up my car with persimmons, I'm now trying to logically do the math. Like I guess 1,000 would be the trunk and the back seat of my car. But even then, I have no idea if that's accurate. That's crazy. The persimmons were stolen over several nights. Which I seem to... I don't know how to run an orchard. I'm spending a lot of this podcast admitting things I don't know. I do not know how to run an orchard. I don't know how to fix international politics. I do know that I do not want Japan to have an excuse to make a Gundam. Okay. But it seems like an oversight that someone could come every night for multiple nights and steal all your fruit. Like there should be some form of security. Recently, it turns out that the police have said that premium fruit has been getting targeted. So in Yamagata, a whole bunch of cherries were stolen. Iwate, a whole bunch of apples were stolen. And from Saitama, a whole bunch of pears were stolen. Now you might be like thinking, why are people bothering to steal fruit? It's really cheap. In Japan, that's not the case. In Japan, fruit is wicked expensive. And every year they talk about like a watermelon or something and how much it's sold for. And it's going to sell for literally hundreds of dollars. And it is really weird to come from a Western country and then come to Japan and not be able to afford fruit because it's probably something you bought a lot back home and just ate all the time. 47 trainee officers have been punished for drinking, smoking, and facilitating such behavior, which is a great... I don't know, I just really enjoyed that sentence. So the age for drinking and smoking in Japan is 20. So these are adult students. So they're probably all like 18, 19. The problem, first of all, 14 adult students, so 14 students over 20. Again, these all are people training to be police officers. They are in trouble for providing the goods for the young underage students. So basically you got 14 people. They're like, we're going to buy alcohol, we're going to buy cigarettes, and we're going to bring them to our underage friends and we're going to have a good time. The students who were drinking are being punished for 2 months. The students who were caught drinking and smoking are getting punished for 3 months. Now I thought, oh, what's the punishment? Maybe they can't be cops anymore and stuff like that. The punishment is that they have to clean the facilities on their day off. Which doesn't seem like much of a punishment, but maybe that's because this isn't much of a crime. But I think a bunch of cops, it should be taken more seriously or they should be punished more severely. I'm not sure how I feel about it because at the same time, I mean, they're probably kind of doing it responsibly. Like they were buying this stuff and then going back to their dorm and drinking. But again, it's against the rules. I flip-flop on this one a lot. Comiket is when you go buy your comic books. It's a big convention, and there's a ton of cosplayers. Comiket is going to allow unvaccinated people to come to the event in December. So this December, they're going to have the one. They didn't have one last year because of coronavirus. So this is a big comeback. I'm a little torn. The people who are running it are being sort of responsible. In Japan, they can't force you to do anything. That's part of the constitution. They're saying if you're unvaccinated, you're allowed to come, but we're encouraging you to get vaccinated before you come to Comiket, which I actually think is a good move, because a lot of the nerd guys who are going to go to this, if they haven't been vaccinated, this might be the kind of thing where they would actually listen to the people who run Comiket. You won't be denied entrance. But I was actually thinking this is going to be December 30th and 31st, so the end of the month, basically right at the beginning of the new year. This is when crowds get together. People travel to see their families in Japan. This is going to put to the test how close we are to herd immunity. So they're thinking like the numbers in Japan have dropped so significantly over the last month. A high 60%, so like maybe 70% of the people in Japan have been fully vaccinated. And they think a significant number of the remaining 30% have actually already got coronavirus and therefore have natural immunity if they survived. So they're thinking that maybe that's the reason why the numbers drop so significantly. What happens next, though, is you get these nerd guys right as sort of the vaccines are starting to wane and they haven't got booster shots and stuff. They go to somewhere, they mix, and they create a sixth wave. So if there is a sixth wave right after December, like 2 weeks into January of the new year, I'm going to call that the Comiket wave, because I'm pretty sure that's where it came from. A stalker was arrested, and he denies he was a stalker. So they met at an airport. He was stalking a cabin attendant. He met her at an airport in 2018, and then they talked for a bit, and then they went their separate ways. Then he was found standing outside her apartment this year. So that's a commitment. Stalking wise, this is a massive commitment, because you got 2018, 19, 20, 21. So 4 years later, he's standing around. She meets him outside, and he's like, "Oh, is there a pharmacy in this area?" Pretending he doesn't remember that they met X amount of years ago. In September and October, he was found hanging around outside her apartment 9 times. The police were contacted. They increased patrols, and then nothing happened. And then it happened again. So he was arrested. He denies this was stalking. But I have a basic rule of thumb that if your activities, if what you are doing is the same thing as what happens in a horror movie, you probably should not be doing that. That's just something to keep in mind. If standing out someone's apartment doesn't seem creepy to you, there's a different problem, because in a horror movie, the guy just standing outside your apartment is a psycho killer. Okay, now we get into the dirty stuff. There was a teacher. I actually think this was an accident. This was a relatively innocent accident. So I'm a little torn on this one too. I haven't made my judgment. This teacher was in school with his 14-year-old students, a bunch of them, and he's using an electronic blackboard. Electronic blackboards are pretty cool. You can do some neat stuff with them. You can connect them to the internet. You can also connect them to your tablet. Now, I have connected my phone to the TV in some of my classrooms before. I was very, very careful that the stuff on the phone had never been near anything dirty. So what actually happened, I had an old phone in the phone I was using, and if I want to look at something dirty, it would be on that phone. I wiped the old, factory reset the old phone, and then only put stuff for my classes on it. So this would not happen. So even though I'm not like a particularly dirty guy and spend a lot of time looking at dirty stuff, I know the internet is dangerous. Because if you're on the internet and you just keep clicking things, you're going to hit porn sooner or later. So this English teacher connected his personal tablet to the electronic blackboard and showed some topless women from his cloud storage. And that was, of course it's going to happen. So he's got pictures. I don't know if they were from a porn site or maybe a lady friend he had. But all his class got to see some boobies. Now, this is where I think he was relatively innocent, where he wasn't trying to be like a really gross dude. He immediately went and reported the incident himself. Fair enough. So he basically just went to his boss and he said, look, I connected my tablet. It pulled some pictures off the cloud and the kids all saw some boobies. I'm sorry. Is there anything we can do? He got a pay cut of 10% for 1 month, which I think is very fair punishment. So I actually think this is not a gross, dirty dude doing gross, dirty stuff. I think it's just an innocent mistake because let's face it, even English teachers need to look at boobies sometimes. And all those kids had seen boobies before. All right, last story. So when you think of deep faking and porn, what you probably think of is someone taking a famous person's face and an adult actress's scene and putting the famous person's face on the scene. That is what people, I think, normally think. When you think deep faking, you actually think faces. In Japan, they have the mosaics. They have the pixelated the pixelated PP bits and lady bits. What this guy did was like, I'm gonna take it a different direction. I'm going to use deep fake to unpixelate the penises and vaginas in Japan, in Japanese porn. And then I'm going to make 2,500 videos. That is some work right there. And I'm going to sell them on my website and other websites for 11 million yen. And this is the first arrest of this type. This is what really got my attention. This is the first arrest for penis deep fakes. And there's actually a weird... So, okay, we'll get to the details first. He used a program called Technogun. So it's TECO and then capital G, capital A, capital N. Technogun. He uploaded to swap out the mosaics for actual penises and the mosaics for actual vaginas. Okay, so then unpixelated pornography is illegal in Japan. So by producing it, he's now committed a crime. It's an obscenity crime. There was a weird thing I was thinking though. He had to troll the internet for penises. So like he didn't go on the internet and look at porn for pleasure. He's like, I need X amount of penises that I can put into this program that it can then sort of mold into the penises on the actor. How much time did he spend, just looking at penises on the internet is a very interesting question. Because this is why I'm never going to get arrested for this crime. Because I would be like, I can't, after the first minute, I'm like, I think I'm done looking at penises for a technical thing. But I know there's people out there and it's like their job and stuff. 11 million yen, that's pretty good. So again, the average Japanese salary is 4.5 million yen. So he basically got 2 years' salary, a little more than that but 2,500 videos is a lot of work. So I'm wondering if he was doing anything else. This may have been his full-time job. But realistically speaking, it's not a good idea. Do not deep fake. Do not unpixelate porn in Japan because you are just eventually going to get arrested.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe on iTunes, Google, Spotify, or anywhere you get podcasts. You can also watch on YouTube/Velocipodcast or streaming on twitch.tv/chunkmcbeefchest. You can find Ninja News Japan on Facebook. Send questions or comments to speakpipe.com/Velocipodcast. Link in the description. Check out all the podcasts in the Velocipodcast family. See McBee, Ninja News Japan, and Daily Affirmations Weekly. Here is an interesting survey. How long would you be willing to look at penny for work? How much would you need to be paid? It seems like something that would be easy to do, like you would get desensitized, but that is a lot of dick.
I did write penai to see if the voice could say it, and it can't, which makes sense because it's not a real word.